Good day, YouTube. Today we'll be watching The Strangest Drug Ever Studied by Fern. I think this will be interesting. So yeah, let's start watching.
This is test subject 34. She has just been given a substance often described as the most powerful psychedelic drug in the world.
LSD?
It makes her feel like she's being launched into outer space.
Huh.
Other users report near-death experiences, profound insights, and mythical
DMT?
encounters with spiritual beings. The drug appears to shake the very foundations of human perception.
It is one of the most weird and unexpected things a person can go through.
We're talking about dimethyltryptamine, or
DMT.
DMT. In its pure synthetic form, it looks like an inconspicuous crystalline powder.
It's a very simple molecule.
And yet, DMT has been puzzling scientists around the globe for more than a century. The substance has been used in indigenous cultures for thousands of years. It occurs naturally in plants, animals,
That's true.
and even in the human body. But when it interacts with our brain, things seem to go completely off the rails. Many users say DMT fundamentally changed their lives. And yet, other experiences suggest there's more to DMT than profound revelations, mystical encounters, and medical promise. For some people, the substance can also open doors to the darkest corners of their consciousness. This is the enduring mystery of DMT.
Yeah, this is interesting intro. Also, it's a bit late, but if you have epilepsy, you probably shouldn't watch this video, or you should skip some parts of it. This video discusses can trigger worsen underlying mental conditions. Viewers who suffer or have suffered from psychotic disorders or who are not mentally stable are particularly advised not to use them. I mean, normal people also shouldn't use them, but we know people aren't very good at following rules and doing what they are told to. So yeah, it's a disclaimer. It was here. Chapter 1: Deep in Janga.
November 1852. This is British botanist Richard Spruce. For the past 3 years, he's been making his way through the Amazon rainforest to study plants. He's particularly interested in mosses. Along the way, he keeps encountering indigenous communities living deep in the jungle. He learns their languages and studies their customs. Right now, Spruce is staying with an indigenous group in what is now northwestern Brazil. Today is a special occasion. The tribe is about to hold a spiritual ceremony, and at the center of it all is this ritual brew. Its key ingredient is a specific type of liana. Indigenous people have been drinking or chewing it for thousands of years. Some groups call it napa, others bako, or pinde. This group calls it kapi. And tonight, Spruce is going to try it himself. He watches several young members of the community drink the mixture before him. He notes that, for about 10 minutes, they appear to be possessed with reckless fury. Then they calm down and simply continue dancing. Then it's his turn. But the tribe didn't just prepare kapi for him.
I had scarcely dispatched 1 cup of the nauseous beverage when the ruler of the feast came up with a woman bearing a large calabash of mandioca beer called kashiri.
After that, protocol demands that
Okay, I'm back.
he top things off with a cigar and a cup of palm wine. Spruce
I don't think that's a good combination.
has to fight off the urge to vomit and stretches out in a hammock. The kapi is slowly kicking in. He later notes in his journal that white men taking kapi all seem to report the same experience.
They feel alternations of cold and heat, fear and boldness. The sight is disturbed and visions pass rapidly before the eyes, wherein everything gorgeous and magnificent they have heard or read of seems combined, and presently the scene changes to things uncouth and horrible.
Hey, this is Jonas, one of the founders of Fern. It's not just psychedelics that can shape our minds. Our thoughts and emotions are molded by relationships, opportunities, but also uncertainty and major life events. For many in our team, pressures often come as deadlines piling up. It's not always dramatic, but over time it can become serious. That's why we encourage our team and viewers to seek support if needed. Some choose to talk to a friend, a colleague, or professionals like the paid partner of today's video. BetterHelp matches you with credentialed therapists based on your preferences, and you can switch therapists anytime. We are aware of the criticism surrounding the platform, and online therapy certainly isn't for everyone. But we also believe it can be genuinely helpful to many. Recent surveys show that 86% would use their service again. And since 2023, BetterHelp has improved its data privacy practices. Under new leadership, they've been certified by HITRUST, a globally recognized standard for healthcare data security. If you feel BetterHelp might be helpful, click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/fern to get 10% off your first month.
Spruce calls the plant Banisteria caapi. Banisteria was the term used at the time for a class of tropical climbing plants. Caapi is an indigenous word for grass. He samples a couple of those vines, dries them, and has them shipped to England. Over the following years, Spruce keeps traveling to South America and repeatedly comes across caapi. One of these encounters takes place in 1857 among an indigenous group in Peru. They also use the vine to prepare a powerful brew. They mix it with other plants and call it ayahuasca. Spruce
Okay, I have also heard of that one.
apparently doesn't drink it himself this time. Instead, he asks the locals to describe their experiences to him. To Spruce, the brew remains an unsolved mystery. He simply can't figure out which particular substances cause these extreme effects. He's already familiar with opium and cannabis, but caapi seems to be much more potent. What he doesn't realize is that he's been looking in the wrong place. The plant he sent back to Europe isn't the key ingredient. Technically, it's not the liana or Banisteria caapi that produces the intoxicating effect. The real trigger is a special compound found in the leaves mixed into the brew. DMT, more precisely, N-DMT. Its molecular structure is surprisingly simple compared to other psychedelics. Its complete name is N-dimethyltryptamine, but we'll simply refer to it as DMT throughout this video. German-Canadian chemist Richard Manske was the first to synthesize the substance in the early 1930s. Back then, he had no idea of its extraordinary psychoactive effects. At its core, DMT is characterized by a nitrogen atom bonded to two methyl groups,
Okay.
hence the name dimethyl. A methyl group consists of one carbon atom bonded to three hydrogen atoms. It's one of the simplest building blocks in organic chemistry. The nitrogen atom is connected via a short carbon chain to the most important part of the molecular structure, the so-called indole ring. The same structural feature can also be found in other known psychedelics like LSD or psilocybin. And within the
I mean, also other psychoactives like, I think ketamine, also in amphetamines, MDMA, bupropion. I mean, many of them have those rings with then NH or
molecular structure of serotonin. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter, a molecule that carries chemical messages or signals between nerve cells. It plays a key role in some of our most essential bodily functions, from mood, sleep, digestion, and nausea, to wound healing and sexual desire.
also body core temperature control.
Because of their structural similarity, psychedelics like DMT can bind to the same receptors usually used by serotonin.
Yeah.
They're like key locks, and drugs are like specific keys that act on specific key locks. And so these classic psychedelic drugs, with which DMT is one of them, act on specific key locks in the brain, and specifically these serotonin receptors in the brain.
This is Chris Timmerman. He's a neuroscientist and one of the world's leading researchers on DMT. He spends much of his time traveling for research, so we're lucky enough to catch him on a video call. It's likely that DMT was also the main active compound in the brew that Spruce encountered back in the jungle. Today, that mixture is widely known as ayahuasca.
Yeah.
To produce it, you mainly need two ingredients. The first one consists of plants that contain DMT. They grow across large parts of the Amazon basin, though not exclusively there. The second ingredient is the capi liana, documented by Spruce. It doesn't contain DMT itself, but it is crucial for making the DMT in the brew psychoactive. Mixing and boiling the two together produces the psychedelic plant drink known as ayahuasca. Psychedelics are generally considered physiologically safe and non-addictive.
Yeah.
That's one of the key differences between them and drugs like cocaine or amphetamines. Those primarily act as stimulants. They artificially increase dopamine and norepinephrine levels in the brain and strongly activate our reward system. Psychedelics, on the other hand, alter perception itself. Users may see or hear things that aren't there, hallucinate, and lose their sense of time and space.
Yeah, true.
Some report life-changing experiences. In many ways, psychedelic substances seem to fundamentally alter how we think and feel, which is precisely why DMT continues to fascinate scientists to this day.
In terms of the psychological impact of the experiences, in terms of the subjective effects it generates, it is one of the most weird and unexpected things a person can go through.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's also with LSD or other psychedelics. You can't really expect what's going to happen if you never took them, because they mess with your perception, and usually your perception works like it should.
April 19th, 1943, a bike path near Basel in Switzerland. This is Swiss chemist Albert Hofmann. He works as a researcher for a Swiss pharmaceutical company.
Oh, yeah. If anyone research psychedelics, they know Hoffman.
Riding next to him is his lab assistant. He explicitly asked her to come along. He's desperately trying to get home. Earlier that day, he started conducting an experiment on himself. He dissolved 250 grams of lysergic acid, diethylamide, in water and
that's LSD.
ingested it. He had synthesized the compound in the lab after isolating it from the
ergot. It's made from or derived from ergot
fungus. And right now, he's feeling a bit under the weather.
Everything in my field of vision wavered and was distorted as if seen in a curved mirror.
Yeah.
I also had the sensation of being unable to move from the spot. Nevertheless, my assistant later told me that we had traveled very rapidly.
Stretching out on the couch back home doesn't help much either.
My surroundings had now transformed themselves in more terrifying ways. Everything in the room spun around, and
he is peeking right now.
Familiar objects and pieces of furniture assumed grotesque, threatening forms. They were in constant motion, animated, as if driven by an inner restlessness. The lady next door, whom I scarcely recognized, brought me milk. She was no longer Mrs. R, but appeared instead as a malevolent, insidious witch wearing a colored mask.
Yeah, that is also usual experience, where people's skin looks really weird, and your own skin also can look really creepy.
Albert Hofmann has just embarked on the world's first LSD trip. He has no idea what the substance does. He believed 250 micrograms to be prudently safe dose, but it's
no, 250 is way too many. You usually take 50 to 100 for a light trip, 100 to 200 I think was it, or 100 to 150 was so normal, and anything beyond 150 or 200 is considered a high dose.
Turns out to be extraordinarily potent, and now he fears he may lose his mind.
Nah, bro, it lasts just a day, half a day, so 12 hours, 6 hours, 12 hours, or 24 hours.
A few hours later, the effects slowly begin to soften. The trip becomes more pleasant. As he steps out into his garden after a spring rain, it feels as though he's seeing everything for the very first time.
Everything glistened and sparkled in a fresh light.
From that day on, Hofmann is convinced that this tiny molecule holds enormous power, that it could someday be of great value to medicine and psychiatry.
Yeah, and that's why it started being researched again.
His discovery jumpstarts the entire field of psychedelic research. Hoffman inspires many other scientists to follow his lead, and in the 1950s, he becomes the first to isolate the psychoactive compound psilocybin from psychedelic mushrooms. That's another major milestone. But psychedelic research also turns its attention to DMT. Scientists discover more and more plants that contain the substance. To date, it has been found in at least 50 different plant species.
I mean, humans also contain it in their brains.
DMT has also been found in
or central nervous system, or the cerebral fluid. I'm not sure which one.
Mammals like rats and rabbits. In the 1960s, a German researcher team even found traces of the substance in human blood. Shortly after, US Nobel Prize-winning scientist Julius Axelrod provided evidence that DMT occurs naturally in the human brain. It's even considered endogenous, meaning our own bodies
I do think it's endogenous, but in very, very, very low doses.
Produce it naturally.
There's a saying that says DMT is everywhere, and it is also found in the human body and
My thank you. I mean, it's better to stop now. I mean, the earlier you stop, the less likely the damage gets bigger. I mean, it depends on the context, because they can both be prescribed normally. I mean, weed is used for Parkinson's, and meth can be used for ADHD, or prescribed, not used. But yeah, if you don't want any damage, then it's best to stop earlier.
in a lot of mammals' bodies as well.
Throughout the 1960s, scientists keep isolating DMT in humans, animals, and plants. And meanwhile, psychedelics are starting to seep into popular culture.
Yeah.
How often have you taken LSD?
About 4 times.
The swinging 60s are the peak years of the hippie movement and psychedelics like LSD.
Well, self-diagnosis isn't the best thing. Nope. That wouldn't help. Or it wouldn't help. For ADHD, that is.
The Cultural Revolution is fueled by activists, intellectuals, and artists alike. One of them is Terence McKenna. He is just studying at Berkeley. He's 18 years old and has already done his fair share of experiments with psychedelics like LSD. But what he is about to experience tonight
Is it really just exercise that could help? So you don't have I'm not a doctor, or psychologist, or psychiatrist, but if you don't have ADHD diagnosed, you also don't have medication for it. Yeah, you should just try to get an appointment, even if it's not easy, or even if it isn't an early appointment. Like, it would also be great if it's in a year, so you can get medication prescribed, because for ADHD you usually get stimulants like amphetamines, which help with motivation and other effects of ADHD. And until then, I mean, the safest option is caffeine and maybe L-theanine, which is a supplement, which can help with focus and concentration.
will eclipse everything he has ever felt. A friend has come to visit and brought this white crystalline powder. He claims it was stolen from a US Army chemical research facility. It's DMT. And for the first time in his life, young Terence McKenna is about to smoke it.
I had this hallucination of tumbling forward into these fractal geometric shapes made of light, and then I found myself in the equivalent of the Pope's private chapel.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And there were insect elf machines proffering strange little tablets with strange writing on them.
Also makes sense. Well, it sounds like interesting experience, but it isn't legal. But I mean, DMT can make you have a HPPD or develop it, and it's not legal to take it, but what's that? HPPD, that's persistent visual distortions after you take a psychedelic, like having visual snow for days, weeks, years, even decades after taking it. So you can, it's not like permanent trip, it's just your visual field, and it's just like visual snow, like what you see on old TVs. So it's not that you would see like uh, it's not that you would see colors differently or things move, it would just be that you see worse. Or having a constant Instagram filter over your eyes. But yeah, but DMT is a psychedelic, so it would most likely not give you heart attack or something like that. And it doesn't cause dependency, so in future, maybe it becomes legal. But until then, we can just watch YouTube videos.
These self-transforming machine elf creatures were speaking in a colored language which condensed into rotating machines that were like Fabergé eggs. All this stuff was so weird and so alien and so un-Englishable that it was a complete
Unenglishable.
shock. I mean, the literal turning inside out of my intellectual universe. It's like being struck by noetic lightning.
The experience completely changes McKenna's view of life and reality. He becomes convinced that there is another secret world, one we normally can't see or access. He drops out of university to chase this mystery.
This is the side effect. It can't kill you physically, but psychologically, yeah, it can mess up a human brain or psyche. You could believe something that's not true, so a delusion.
He travels to Nepal to meet Tibetan shamans. He works as a professional butterfly collector in Indonesia, and he ventures deep into the Colombian jungle with his brother and 3 friends. McKenna's description of the so-called machine elves becomes a cultural reference. Countless DMT users later report encountering mystical entities that closely match what he described. He dies in 2000, leaving behind an extensive audio archive with over 500 hours of theories on psychedelics and spirituality.
A drug like synthetic ayahuasca, pharmahuasca, do people realize this is the same thing as has been taken for thousands of years down there? Do they realize its role in shamanic healing?
By the late 19th,
Yeah, I think he got pretty disoriented there.
1960s, authorities begin cracking down on the widespread drug use in the US.
Well, I mean, if I was to say where I got it from, it's illegal and everything. It's silly to say that.
In 1966, California and Nevada become the first states to outlaw the production, sale, and possession of LSD. 2 years later, the drug is banned across the entire country.
America's public enemy number 1 is drug abuse.
America's war on drugs soon extends to much of the rest of the world.
If you made it producible in in pharmaceutical companies and sold at dosages that can't kill you and regulated for purity, I mean, it isn't a problem number 1. It's just that you banned it and it was synthesized by people who don't know what they are doing. That's why it was dangerous, but it was made by legit companies who know how to work with that and regulated. I think it would be available over the counter. Or that's just my hypothesis.
In 1971, the United Nations adopts the Convention on Psychotropic Substances. Many countries outlaw psychedelic substances and sharply restrict their use, including DMT.
Yeah, it's not used.
From that point on, only a handful of approved scientific institutions are allowed to continue their research on them, and even they have to adhere to extremely strict regulations. For decades, DMT research effectively grinds to a halt.
The whole class of compounds got pulled off the clinical bench, and no research has gone on for 40 years.
One of the tragedies to me is that the clinical research on these substances pretty much stopped around 1970.
Okay, chapter 3.
Dr. Rick Strassman is a psychiatrist. He's set on bringing psychedelic research back to life. His study is the first attempt to observe the effects of psychedelic substances in humans in the US in over 20 years. He wants to know what DMT does to our mind and body. The participants are numbered. Sarah is subject 34. She's in her early 40s and lives with her second husband. She has
Why specifically number 34?
3 children and works as a freelance writer. She has told the researchers that an angel once visited her when she had a high fever as a child, and that every now and then she communicates with spirit guides for advice and support. She also suffers from depression. In her 20s, she overdosed on tranquilizers and was hospitalized for 2 weeks following the suicide attempt. Today, she wants to find out whether DMT can help her gain a deeper understanding of herself and her relationship to the universe. The experiment is set to begin in just a few seconds. The onset of DMT's effects largely depend on how you consume it. Most recreational users smoke DMT using a glass pipe. This makes the effects kick in extremely fast, usually in under 1 minute. The peak experience tends to last only a couple of minutes before wearing off. The smoke tastes unpleasant and can trigger coughing fits. Another substance closely related to N and DMT is called 5-MeO-DMT.
We heard about this one in the craziest drugs you have heard about, or you have never heard about.
This YouTuber smoked it for one of his videos. Others try to consume it like this. 5-MeO
Bruh. That's not how you do it.
DMT occurs naturally in secretions of the Colorado River toad. A common misconception is that licking the toad will get you high. It won't, and it can be extremely toxic.
It will kill you.
Most research today focuses on synthetic 5-MeO-DMT. It also kicks in very fast and strong, but tends to produce far fewer visual hallucinations than N and DMT. DMT can also be snorted. In that case, the effects take a few minutes to kick in, but the trip also lasts a bit longer. Ayahuasca usually contains the highest dose of DMT. The effects begin after around 45 minutes and can last several hours. But the brew is tough on the stomach. Many people have to throw up during the trip. 2 things are paramount for a pleasant DMT experience: set and setting, the right mix of emotional stability and soothing surroundings.
Yeah.
Experts recommend a calm environment where users feel safe and are able to lie down comfortably. Mixing substances can be extremely dangerous. Some users avoid alcohol, masturbation, and watching the news before attending an ayahuasca retreat.
Makes sense.
But not even the best preparation can guarantee DMT won't produce what many call a bad trip. Some users online describe experiences that leave them shaken for days, with flashbacks to vivid hallucinations of falling or flying through tunnels, and encounters with frightening beings.
Yeah, that can also happen.
Psychedelics can also worsen existing mental health issues. People who suffer from psychotic disorders or are mentally unstable should not take them.
Yeah.
In general, DMT should never be used without professional guidance. Sarah's
ideally not.
Experience will be guided by Dr. Strassman. In clinical settings like this one, DMT is administered via IV injection. It hits almost instantly. Sarah has previously been given a low introductory dose to see how her body reacts to the substance.
0.05 milligrams. So that's 1,000 micrograms, 150 micrograms.
Recreational users are advised to start with similar test doses. Sarah's low dose experience has been pleasant and relaxing. Now she's about to receive 5 full doses. She will go on 5 consecutive trips. After each one, Strassman will let her come down to check in with her. She's all set. Sarah can feel the cool touch of Strassman's hand, and she's trying to count her heartbeats.
I got to 3 beats. Then there was a sound, like a hum, that turned into a whoosh. And then I was blasted out of my body at such speed, with such force, as if it were the speed of light. The colors were aggressive, terrifying. I felt as if they would consume me. As if I were on a warp speed conveyor belt heading straight into the cosmic, psychedelic buzzsaw. I was terrified. I felt abandoned. I'm completely and totally lost.
Okay. Useful for a psychiatrist.
I have never been so alone. I was scared, but I kept telling myself, relax, surrender, embrace. It was all flashing and whirling lights. I was rather disappointed. Here I'm expecting this profound spiritual experience, and I get Las Vegas. But then, before I had much time to be disappointed, I flew on and saw clowns performing. They were like toys or animated clowns. I had the overwhelming urge to laugh. I was kind of self-conscious about it at first, but I couldn't contain myself, and I laughed out loud watching those clowns. Suddenly, a pulsating entity appeared in the patterns. It sounds weird to describe it as Tinkerbell-like. It was trying to coax me to go with it. At first, I was reluctant, but I did want to go with it. I could tell the drug was starting to wear off, and I wasn't high enough to follow it. I told it I can't go with you now. See, they want me back. It didn't seem to be offended and, in fact, followed me back until I sensed it had reached its boundary. I felt like it was saying goodbye.
Sarah needs a short break. The start of her trip has been especially intense. That's something Timmerman hears from many of his own participants.
People can feel, especially at the beginning of the experience, that they're being launched from a rocket, as if they're like going into outer space and they're in a rocket. And so there's a strong feeling of energy and vibrations in their body. They are interacting with beings, spirits, entities, gestures, clowns, a range of different...
This could be just overload of serotonin receptors.
Ways in which people see these beings that interact with the participants, that they engage with them, invite them to do something, to communicate, and so forth and so on.
Encounters with such beings seem to be a common experience in many DMT trips. For one of his studies, Timmerman analyzed nearly 4,000 DMT experiences posted on Reddit. Almost half mentioned similar entity encounters. In a 2021 field study with 36 participants, almost everyone reported an encounter with some sort of sentient being.
Interesting.
But how do these encounters actually unfold? That's what Baltimore's Johns Hopkins University asked over 2,500 DMT users in an online survey. The first question was about the primary senses involved in the encounter. Most participants reported seeing them, and more than half described hearing them. About a third said they could touch them, while some could even smell or taste them. A whopping 85% described their encounter as extrasensory or telepathic. The most common descriptive labels for the entities were beings, guides, spirits, aliens, and helpers. Less common labels were clowns, demons, gnomes, monsters, or devils.
What's a helper?
As to the emotions involved, most participants reported feelings of love, trust, and joy. Only
well, that's usually what happens on MDMA, also.
a minority experienced fear. 11% believed they had encountered religious figures, meaning some people think they saw God in these beings.
This is what some of the research has found, and some people have reported that. And it is interesting because, in a way, God is a personification of these spiritual or mystical-like qualities according to certain religions, and it seems that DMT stimulates those sort of experiences.
DMT appears to have a significant impact on people's religious beliefs and their sense of spirituality. This study surveyed users who reported so-called God encounter experiences during psychedelic trips. 25% described them as atheists before their trip, meaning they didn't believe in God. Afterwards, their number dropped to just 7%.
Okay, interesting.
Among ayahuasca users, atheist identification declined from 12 to 3%. Sarah, too, is deeply moved by these encounters. She's about to receive her final injection.
Where does the ferry lead?
I went directly into deep space. They knew I was coming back. They told me there were many things they could share with us when we learn how to make more extended contact. Again, they wanted something from me, not just physical information. They were interested in emotions and feelings. I told them, we have something we can give you, spirituality. I guess what I really meant was love. I tried to figure out how to do this. I felt a tremendous energy, brilliant pink light with white edges, building on my left side. I knew it was spiritual energy and love. They were on my right, so I reached out my hands across the universe and prepared to be a bridge. I let this energy pass through me to them. I said something like, see, there I did it for you. You have it. They were grateful. I was coming down off the DMT, losing altitude.
Okay. And what will she report?
Sarah didn't expect to become what she called an earthly spiritual emissary during her trip. She doesn't feel comfortable with that role, but has done her best to live up to it. Now it's the next participant's turn. Number 35. Over the course of 5 years, Strassman observes hundreds of these trips. He administers about 400 doses of DMT to 60 volunteers. He eventually calls DMT the spirit molecule because of the spiritual and metaphysical experiences it appears to induce. Strassman's work in the 1990s was groundbreaking research, but it also raised more questions than it could answer. Since then, many neuroscientists have picked up where he left off. So what's actually happening inside our brain when we take DMT?
Yeah, that's the interesting question.
Modern neuroscience suggests that our brain has a hierarchical modular organization. Modular means that certain nerve cells work together in different types of clusters or brain networks, specialized in specific functions. There appears to only be a limited amount of communication between these networks. Hierarchical means that higher order areas, like the prefrontal cortex, collect signals from different areas across the brain to coordinate appropriate responses.
Awesome.
But that entire organization seems to pretty much collapse when our brain is on DMT. The key players here are these special serotonin receptors. They determine how sensitive neurons react to incoming signals. That, in turn, impacts how information is transmitted and processed within and across brain regions. When DMT binds to these receptors, the brain's usual top-down control mechanisms become less effective. It's like the neurochemical reins come off. One of the experts we talked to thinks DMT makes the brain become more democratic. Another calls it anarchy. Either way, the brain suddenly enters a state in which far more areas communicate with each other than usual.
I mean, that's with almost every psychedelic drug.
Scientists call this global hyperconnectivity. It's completely different from how the brain normally operates.
Yeah.
But how does this explain these extremely vivid hallucinations?
And now, maybe perceiving the imaginations as reality?
Why do some users feel as if they're entering an entirely different reality? One explanation is that the brain sort of disconnects from external information. In this paper, Chris Timmerman proposes that DMT disrupts the brain's normal way of processing sensory input. The technical term is functional deafferentation.
It's a state of disconnected consciousness. We're disconnected from the external environment individuals feel.
Instead, the brain shifts into a completely new state, a kind of internal simulation.
Yeah.
They report that they are in an immersive world of experience.
But where does this other world come from? One clue to unravel this mystery
imagination,
could be dreams. All those weird things that happen in our dreams seem similar to what people describe on DMT.
They are disconnected from their immediate environments, and their own brains and the organism as a whole is reconstructing an alternative world of experience. It's very similar to what happens during DMT experiences.
Timmerman and colleagues found that the strongest rhythms of theta waves in the brain correlate with the peak of a DMT trip. The same patterns are found during REM sleep. He writes that a DMT trip is like dreaming with your eyes open, except that DMT trips are usually far more intense and vivid than normal dreams. Neuroscientist Andrew Gallimore has a theory about why that is. In our dreams, the brain sort of rebuilds our real-life experiences, drawing on established patterns of information.
Yeah.
But on DMT, those familiar templates come undone. Everything becomes more open, chaotic, and unpredictable.
It's like you're seeing the world anew, like you've never seen it before. Your brain, you haven't decided what you're seeing. And coupled with this increased sensitivity to sensory information, the world becomes transcendent. It becomes much more vivid.
Which brings us to one of the wildest DMT experiences of all, encountering spiritual entities or sentient beings. There are different theories about these types of encounters. One study examined how these two brain regions behave under the influence of DMT. These areas are essential for recognizing social cues and processing the emotional dynamics of human interaction.
So when we have our normal experiences and we interact with our partners or co-workers, our sons and daughters, these same systems also start engaging in the brain.
In turn, these areas become active when we try to understand someone else's thoughts and feelings.
Okay.
Or, more specifically, when we try to distinguish their mental state from our own.
So right now we're working with a hypothesis based on what we found, that in essence what DMT does, it engages parts of what we call social cognition, the ways in which we build up our relationships in the world.
In the hyperconnected DMT brain, these two regions engage far more intensely with each other and with other areas.
And so we believe that that enhances or pronounces or enable the appearances of these beings or entities. It's almost as if we simulate those social relations.
Simulate them all the time when you predict something or predict what's going to happen if you do one thing in social interactions.
Simply, the brain massively ramps up its resources for processing social signals. And that could explain why so many DMT users encounter these entities or beings. Another key to understanding the substance could be just how similar DMT trips seem to feel to so-called near-death experiences. Such experiences can occur during traffic accidents, suicide attempts, and cardiac arrests. Many report a sense of brightness, seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, losing track of time and space, or gaining insight into some ultimate truth.
The feature.
So, sensory deprivation, while brain is still active or still has some oxygen to keep working.
Features that are similar to the near-death experiences in the DMT experiences are that feeling that many people have, that they have reached a sort of boundary or a limit of where they can go in this alternate reality or universe.
Timmerman thinks these near-death experiences could also be linked to global hyperconnectivity.
That is such a big transformation of the mind, such a big transformation of the brain, that it is likely that the brain is sending a signal that it's dying, that it is being transformed beyond recognition.
Could be.
In other words, there's so much going on in the brain during a DMT trip that the brain blows all of its fuses. It basically thinks it's dying. And yet, there's one major difference between DMT trips and near-death experiences.
One has a half-life, another one doesn't.
DMT is more visual, and near-death experiences are more disembodied.
Then again, near-death experiences are also far from being fully understood. This makes it even harder to draw reliable scientific conclusions with regard to DMT.
I mean, it's good that it isn't so researched, because if you do a research, you have to have a control group and one that you induce that in. And you have to be sure that you can reverse that death in them.
Back in the 90s, Rick Strassman proposed a bold hypothesis that the spirit molecule, DMT, might be released during crucial life events, like birth.
True. That can be true. That's good hypothesis.
Death, or profound mystical experiences. Today, there is strong evidence suggesting that DMT is produced naturally in mammalian brains. Scientists are still investigating why that is. Early findings suggest that DMT release in the brain correlates with a massive surge of stress hormones. One experiment with lab rats showed a significant increase in DMT levels following cardiac arrest. Another study suggests that releasing DMT in the brain could also have a protective function. The compound appears to activate a receptor that helps brain cells survive oxygen deprivation and oxidative stress. So DMT might as well be a kind of built-in emergency medication for life-threatening situations. And a very recent study suggests that DMT levels in our brain might be much higher than previously assumed, and that it may be involved in a number of physiological processes. So here's what we know so far. DMT occurs naturally in plants, mammals, and humans. It's even considered endogenous, meaning our own bodies may produce it.
Yeah.
We also know that when on DMT, our brain seems to be far more interconnected.
Yeah, also true, I think.
That it activates so many different areas that it can feel like entering an entirely different world. One where we can communicate with all sorts of otherworldly beings. And in some cases, our brain gets so overwhelmed by this hyperconnected state that it thinks it's dying.
Yeah.
But all of this is just the beginning. Early clues, hypotheses, and indications. Nothing more and nothing less. Most of the questions DMT poses to science are still wide open. For now, DMT remains a vast, unsolved mystery. We still don't fully understand how it creates such vivid hallucinations. We don't really know why our own body produces it, and we certainly don't understand how 50 milligrams of this tiny molecule can reshape entire lives in just 20 minutes.
Yeah, 20 minutes is real short.
We're back in the Amazon rainforest. about 170 years after Richard Spruce. Once again, a British researcher is attending an ayahuasca ceremony. But things are different this time. Simon Ruffle is not a botanist, he's a psychiatrist. Unlike Spruce, he knows exactly what active compound he's dealing with. For the past decade, he's been studying ayahuasca to explore its potential role in healing trauma, like PTSD in war veterans.
Yeah.
But so far, the number of participants has been too small for conclusive results, and some of them feel their mental health has worsened after the ayahuasca experience.
It can happen.
But others show first signs of improvement. In some participants, Ruffle has observed significant reductions in depression and anxiety outcomes. Timmerman has seen similar indicators in his own research. His theory:
depressed individuals tend to think that they are worthless individuals, that they are unlovable, for example. They adopt beliefs that are no longer useful for them. What DMT does, it acts on these brain mechanisms that are related to that sense of self and dynamically can change it in a lasting way.
Some studies suggest that meditation and other mindfulness-based practices could offer positive effects that are similar to those of psychedelic experiences.
Yep.
But research on that is also just beginning. Chris Timmerman will continue to explore DMT's medical use, but he's also looking to unravel an even bigger mystery: human consciousness itself.
I'm particularly interested in using DMT to help us understand how we construct our usual worlds of experience.
He's chasing the same secret that made Terence McKenna set out about 60 years ago.
The world that we see out there is not necessarily the same world that is truly out there. We as human
our brain is literally just rendering it, but we don't know what raw input looks
beings, our brains construct that world. I'm interested in using DMT to help us understand that construction.
Okay, so this was the strangest drug ever studied by Fern. It was really, really interesting because I'm interested in how mind works and brain works on molecular level or physiological level. So this was very interesting. And I'm also really interested in how external substances can affect body and make it better or worse, what happens exactly in the body. So yeah, this was a real interesting video for me. So I'm going to like and subscribe, which you can also do if you like the video. And you can watch the other videos from Fern. So thank you for watching. I will see you in another video. Goodbye.